Hey everybody, today I'm here with Bruce Loman. Bruce was one of the original people to be involved with Callaway Golf, and he and I have been connected on social media for a couple of years. And I just happened to run into him today while I was playing after my round of golf at Strawberry Farms Golf Club. So I saw him on the driving range, and I said, "Hey, let's shoot this video talking about your experience at Callaway and some insights you might have about helping golf and growing the golf industry from what you've learned at your years at Callaway." So why don't you give us a little bit of background? Tell us about your time at Callaway and what you experienced there.
Well, I was a golf professional in Connecticut, and winter time in Connecticut's a little cool, to say the least. And I ended up coming out to work for the Bob Hope Desert Classic and the Dinah Shore. And while I was there, I ran into this guy starting a company with little hickory wedges and putters. It was Ely Callaway, and he moved to Carlsbad, and I went to work for him. It turned out to be quite a golf company from what we started with what we had. We developed Big Bertha. We've got some financial backing from General Electric Pension Corporation, who came in and saw the product. They knew Mr. Callaway because of his involvement with Burlington Industries in New York City. So we had a little bit of an in there. And from there on, it kind of, we developed the golf club. We had a few problems with it early on, with the faces collapsing, a few things. GE let us use their aircraft engineers to shore up the face.
Interesting.
And after that, it kind of took off. It really, obviously, if anybody plays golf knows that name. It's probably the best known name in golf.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, when the Big Bertha came out, that was kind of a big thing. And you were telling me a story about the Big Bertha and how that came about earlier. Why don't you tell us how that happened?
Mr. Callaway called us one day and said, "Hey, come in on Monday and bring me some names for this golf club." Everybody was like, names? Nobody names a golf club. And where he got it from was Bobby Jones naming his putter.
Yeah.
And that's where Ely got, because he was a second cousin to Bobby Jones. So he had a little bit of background with that in Georgia. And he said, "Oh, we want to name this. We want to give it some kind of a brand." So everybody came in with all these silly names, and Ely said, "I got a name." And he said, "Big Bertha." And everybody went. And he said, "Nobody likes it." A few guys had the nerve to say no, and he said, "Good, that's what we're going to name it." And that's Mr. Callaway in a nutshell. He'd ask your opinion, and he would listen to your opinion, but if he had something he knew was going to work, he did it, and 99.5% of the time he was right and we were wrong. So, and it really changed the golf business. It really did. People could now all of a sudden hit a driver that couldn't hit a driver before. And then he wanted to expand on that, so the only way to do it was go to titanium, because Big Bertha, we had a stretch steel about 25%, and you can only stretch it so much before it'd blow up. So they researched it, and they found that actually the aircraft guy said to him, "You have to use titanium if you want to make it bigger." So I think most of the titanium mines were in Russia. So all of a sudden at the PGA show, there were all these Russians in our booth. It's like, what's going on? But that's the only place it was. And there were 3 manufacturers in Connecticut, in New England. One of them was in New England, one was in Northern California, and one of them was a gun manufacturer. And they started building all our titanium drivers. And then the capacity got so huge they couldn't. It was nothing, so we had to get another one. So we were building 2 different places. It was Ruger Firearms is what it was. And some of them had USA on them, some of them had Ruger on them. And then people started saying, "Well, we want the Ruger one." So we had to take the name off both of them, because you couldn't tell which came from what factory. There was no way. So, golfers are a little wacky. That took off. That got even bigger than Big Bertha did. I mean, we sold. So we made a bigger one. We made Biggest Big Bertha, and that's when then people were kind of like, "Okay, you guys are losing your mind." But if you look at it now, it's not that big. Biggest Big Bertha was like 280, I think, cc's, which is maybe a big 3-wood now. So we constantly push the boundaries of this stuff, with the driver. And in actuality, the first club we made was an iron. So everybody thinks we're a driver company, but S2H2, which was the bored out hosel on the iron, was really the first thing that we made. And that took off, and it gave us a little bit of capital and a little bit of, for a long time we were, how long are these doors going to be open?
Yeah.
And it's quite an experience. For what it is now, and the technology that's involved down there now,
right,
is absolutely incredible.
Right.
It's Epic and some of the drivers that are out there now that are really changing golf again. And it was fun to be involved all that time.
Because that was a big shift from coming up with those Big Berthas. I just remember they were so much larger than anything else. And what was the decision behind that? How did that thought process go? Were you involved in that?
Well, I was involved in it because I was around it, and we only had 50 people in the company, so you were involved a little more than you would be now with 3,000 people or 2,000. There was a big-headed driver that Daiwa made out of graphite.
Yeah.
So they had the idea.
They had it. Okay.
The problem with the graphite was if you were playing on a wet day or you were hitting balls on a wet day, the dirt would get on the ball, and the dirt on the ball would make holes, little indentations in the face of the graphite.
Okay.
We knew it. We knew the concept worked because the Prince tennis racket worked. Anything around the edges didn't twist and turn.
Yeah.
So that's when Mr. Callaway came up with there's got to be a way to do this out of metal. And he hired a guy, Dick Helmstetter, who made pool cues in Japan to come and help us with the hickory wedges. And Dick stayed on and kind of got a lot of the credit for inventing Big Bertha. Oh, awesome. But that's how it happened. And we just kept pushing it. It's always been now it's a multi-material company. Yeah. Titanium with all kinds of different polymers, and so it's always the same concept with the dry weight around the perimeter. I've got one time. This is a great story.
All right, good.
I was lucky enough to play with Jack Nicklaus in a Pro-Am at PGA West one time. The Big Bertha irons had just come out, and if anybody remembers Big Bertha irons, they had the big top line, and they were pretty big. And Jack grabs it, and he's looking at it, and he said, I don't know how any of your guys play with this. We had Chi-Chi, we had Paul Azinger, we had a few guys. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, I've hit them. He said, and all they do is go straight. And I looked at him. It's Jack Nicklaus. I'm not going to say too much. Yeah. I said, we didn't build them for you. And he hesitated for a second, and then he laughed, and I was like, okay. And when Mr. Callaway heard that, he went crazy. He said, you got to get Jack on the phone. I said, I don't. You forgot about me. You're Ely Callaway. You call him. And he started a friendship with Jack.
Well, I know that the club, manufacturing clubs, it was going on a big high trajectory pattern for the longest time. What was that like, being involved in the uprise of all this new technology and throwing it in there? And you mentioned you had NASA and all these different
there were literally, and this isn't an exaggeration, there were some years that I don't remember. I mean, we were so busy, so much. I mean, we did 10 million, 20 million, 40 million, 80 million, 160 million. I can go on and on. And, the facility got bigger. We had to move, and then we get into that one, and that got bigger, and we had to move again. I mean, it was like nothing in the golf business anybody's ever seen, and maybe some other business it happened in, but, got to the point where Yale or Harvard brought Mr. Callaway in to talk to him, classes. They wanted to talk to him. How did this happen? It was a ride that's just unforgettable. The amount of product that we sold and the amount of stuff that happened in a relatively short period of time was absolutely incredible. It really was.
So when you're like day one, you're walking into this. What was that like? What was
day one? Most of the people when I left Connecticut thought I was out of my mind. This is a $500,000 to probably $500,000 hickory shafted company. They were making hickory shafted wedges and putters, and they said to me, "Are you nuts? You got to be crazy going out. You're going to go to California, leave. You got a nice job in Connecticut." I said, "There's something about this guy. I don't know what it is," and that's really what happened. I mean, we went from that hickory shafted thing to it was actually an accident. We had a wedge. We had a billet wedge. Like a milled putter. Okay. Yeah. It's really just carved out of a block of steel, so it's not cast or forged, and that's what makes it so soft and so precise. We built a wedge, and it was probably too expensive, and it was probably too heavy, so we tried to find ways to make it lighter, and we cut the hosel off. and it was still a little heavy. So somebody in the back said, well, you know what, let's drill some weight out of the hosel. So we drilled some weight out of the hosel, and it went all the way through. And we took some sand wedges and we bent them. We cut the flange off and made a 6-iron, an 8-iron, a wedge, and put a shaft in it all the way to the bottom and cut off the shaft. And the feel, and the height, and the ease to get the ball up in the air was unbelievable. It was the first batch we hit was Dennis Paulson, who was the long drive champ, was an Orange County guy. I think I see him on some infomercials. Yeah, you see him on some infomercials now. Paul Runyon, who won the PGA Championship in like 1934 or something. It was probably the best chipper and putter in the history of golf. Mr. Callaway, myself, and Bruce Parker, who was the guy that really was the push behind this whole thing, as far as selling product. Hit some balls at a little driving range in Carlsbad, and this thing was born. And again, Mr. Callaway named it. It was S2H2, short, straight, hollow hosel. He had this stuff. I don't know where this stuff came from. The guy was a genius. And that's what got us into, I took it to some PGA Tour events, and we had a little-headed S2H2 wood that was a drill through, and we brought it to the vintage tournament, and Don Bees either won or came in second. I think he won it. And by the time I got home, there were no cell phones then. By the time I got home, on my answering machine were all these guys that I grew up watching, Doug Sanders and Billy Casper, and they're all left messages on my machine that they wanted an S2H2 driver, but most of them were 3-woods. So I went in the morning and I said, I've got 20 messages here from tour players. So that's kind of how the tour department started.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's just everything used to happen like this because it was brand new. And we got some credibility, and then Mark Brooks won the Houston Open with an 8-degree Big Bertha, and after that it went, because we had credibility on the senior tour, we had nobody on the regular tour. And Mark Brooks was a very straight player, didn't hit it very far, so he hit Big Bertha and hit it a little bit further, so he played it, and he won. So every golf company, every company's probably got that story of where, what, something happened, right? And that was the thing that happened. He won, and after that, we couldn't make him fast enough.
Golf manufacturer's going really well, and then at a certain point, it's taking a turn. Were you involved in Callaway during that? And how did that go about?
A couple things happened, I think, in my own humble opinion. Everybody had to catch up. We had 70-something% of the market, so people had to work hard to build product to catch up, and some of them did. I mean, they really did. And then we got, like you go try to, you get a haircut and you want to try to you tell the guy cut a little more, and then you go home and go, why the heck did I do this? We started doing that with some drivers. We tried to take some spin off of them, and I think we took a little too much spin off of them, and we had a golf club that guys had a tough time hitting, and that was that little opening that all these other companies needed. And it took us a couple years to get back after that. It was, you could play with it. You just had to go up a degree or two. And players don't want to stand on the first tee with an 11.5-degree driver because their buddies look at them like, what are you?
That's interesting.
Right, and everyone wants to play 8 degrees. Everybody wants to play 9 degrees. So we do demo days and say, look, this driver is great, but you got to go up a couple of degrees. And guys didn't want to do it. They really, literally didn't want to do it.
That's interesting.
And that gave the opening to a lot of companies who made good product. TaylorMade, Title, everybody, really. I mean, and then it got competitive. Is all out, and that's the way it is now. You see even now with waves. TaylorMade was here, and now they're kind of leveled off a little bit, and then we came out with Epic, and we went to the top now. And but I think you got to start with kids and younger people. This Top Golf thing is really kind of cool. Where you go there, you sit down, it's like a bar, you have a drink, you hit balls. Those things are blowing up all over the country, as far as I know. And you're going to make it a little bit more fun. It's hard. You play, I play. You know how hard it is. I played basketball my whole life. I could take a year off playing basketball, still make some shots. I take 5 minutes off playing golf. It's like I never played before. So I think you got to make it a little bit easier, and I think you got to make it more accessible, especially to kids. Some of these, some courses, it's hard for kids to get out there. If you let the young people come out and play, or you teach them how to play, and you give them the opportunity to get out there. You know, their parents come, and their relatives come, and their friends come, and you know, I think, I don't want to tell the PGA or the USGA how to run their business, because they obviously do a good job, but I think you've got to get more people involved, and they do. There's a lot of junior programs out there, so I think they're starting to see it. You know, Strawberry Farms here, where we're, you know, doing the talk today, they've got a thing in the morning. It's a 9-hole deal on the weekends, where you just come out, you play 9 holes, and breakfast is included. And I've been out here, and there's people here before dark, or before light rather, to get out there and go and play a quick 9 holes and go home with family and do what they want to do. So little innovative things like that.
Last question. I know you're quite a golfer yourself, so when we're connected on these social media channels, I see your name on the leaderboard almost everywhere.
Nobody's quite a golfer except those 300 guys on the PGA Tour, but go ahead. It's nice of you to say.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your playing. So you worked for Callaway for all this time, and now you're out on the golf course tearing up the scoreboards on the local golf tournaments we've got.
40 years in the golf business, and at Callaway, most of that time, Mr. Callaway had a no golf during the week rule.
Really?
Yeah, it was.
That's interesting.
He wanted us to go to work, and so when I finally kind of packed it in last year, I said, you know what? I've got probably 2-3 years here before I'm too old, so I'm playing at everything. So I played in about 20 events last year. I just played the California Super Senior up at Ojai the last 3 days, and then Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday I qualified for the Golf Channel Nationals down in the desert. So I'm going to go down and play that. And they got the Cal Senior Amer, and I just came back from Poppy, where I played the senior match play up there. So I got enough to do. And I'm coaching Sage Hill High School girls team, which is really fun. These girls can really play. You asked me about a good 19th hole story, but this isn't 19th hole, but it's got to do with the 18th hole of Bermuda Dunes during the Bob Hope Desert Classic. We were on the crew to put the tournament together, and we were down in the maintenance area below the pond on 18. And we caught a 19.5-pound catfish on gallery rope and a 2-pronged hook with a piece of roast beef from the kitchen at Bermuda Dunes, and pulled it in and had to hit it with a gallery stake to kill it while they were playing the Pro-Am. So guys are on 18 watching this. So that's my golf story for the 19th hole. For those out there that play and looking for a career, younger people, it's quite a business to be in. It's, you know, I spent 40 years doing it. I met people that I would never have met, presidents, actors, actresses, sports people. I've gotten to go places I would never have gone. My parents worked in factories in Waterbury, Connecticut, so there wasn't that access. It's been quite a life, you know, that I would never have expected. And it's a fun thing to do, and you meet great people, and I'd recommend it to anybody. You know, you got in the golf business.
Yeah, I did.
Good.
All right. Thanks again, Bruce.
Thanks.